Christian Horner is no longer the team principal of Red Bull Racing. After 20 years, countless podiums, and a trophy cabinet that redefined dominance in the modern era of Formula One, he's gone. Just like that, no farewell tour, no transition period, just an announcement on July 9th, 2025 that shook the motorsport world to its core. This wasn't a retirement, it wasn't a planned exit. This was a forced removal, a cold, calculated decision from the top that signals a deeper shift inside one of F1's most iconic teams. And it might just trigger a chain reaction that reshapes the competitive balance of the sport. Red Bull didn't waste time. Within hours of confirming Horner's departure, they named Laurent Mekies, formerly of Racing Bulls, as his immediate replacement. No interim figure, no public search. The message was clear. Red Bull is moving on. But can they? Let's be honest, Christian Horner was Red Bull Racing. Since the team's inception in 2005, he's been the face, the voice, the strategist, and the political operator behind everything the team accomplished. 8 drivers' championships, 5 constructors' titles, hundreds of races led, rivalries shaped, dynasties formed. He wasn't just running a team, he was building a legacy. But even legacies have cracks, and in this case, the signs of trouble have been building for over a year. By the end of the 2023 season, Red Bull was still winning, but something had changed. Despite Max Verstappen clinching his 4th consecutive title, whispers of internal unrest began to circulate. Key technical figure Rob Marshall left for McLaren. Long-standing employees started to quietly exit. The once impenetrable walls of Milton Keynes were starting to shake. Internally, tensions were brewing. The rift between Red Bull's Austrian and Thai ownership factions, previously kept behind closed doors, was becoming impossible to ignore. Disagreements about spending, strategy, and leadership direction were becoming more frequent and more public. Then, in early 2024, the situation exploded. Red Bull launched a formal investigation into allegations of inappropriate conduct against Horner. The investigation was a bombshell. Even though he was ultimately cleared of any wrongdoing, the damage was done. Trust had eroded, the boardroom had shifted, and most importantly, the perception of Horner as an untouchable figure was shattered. The relationship between Horner and Red Bull's executive leadership was never the same after that. Behind the scenes, fractures widened. Horner tried to keep the team together, but the exits kept coming. First, Adrian Newey, arguably the most influential car designer in the sport's history, announced his departure. Then Jonathan Wheatley, the team's sporting director, stepped down. A core leadership group that had anchored Red Bull for over a decade was suddenly gone. And that's when the performances started slipping. In 2025, Red Bull's dominance began to crack. Ferrari had rebounded. McLaren looked revitalized. The competition wasn't just catching up, they were starting to beat Red Bull on pure pace. The British Grand Prix was a low point. Verstappen finished a distant 5th. Tsunoda failed to score. The team looked sluggish, confused, and increasingly disjointed. Inside Red Bull's headquarters in Milton Keynes, a line had been crossed. An emergency meeting of key stakeholders, Shalom Uvidia, Mark Mateschitz, Oliver Mintzlaff, was called. The decision? Christian Horner would be removed immediately. Not at the end of the season, not after a review. Now, the statement released was polite, thankful, respectful, but the action behind it was swift and brutal. Red Bull was cutting the cord. And that's where the real questions begin. What happens to Red Bull now? Can Laurent Mekies steady a ship that's not only taking on water but rapidly losing its crew? Can the team reinvent itself with new leadership while facing a game-changing 2026 regulation shift that demands total innovation? And what about Max Verstappen? Verstappen has been Red Bull's crown jewel, the anchor around which the team has built its strategy, car, and entire identity for the last 5 years. But his camp has been quietly expressing concern for months. Concern about the car's development, about the leadership changes, about the direction of the team. With Horner gone, Verstappen loses not just a team boss, but a close personal ally. Their relationship has been more than transactional. It was foundational. They trusted each other. They won together. They built an empire side by side. Now that foundation is fractured. His manager has already issued statements hinting at disappointment over how Horner's exit was handled, and other teams, Mercedes, Aston Martin, even Audi, are reportedly ready to pounce if Verstappen's loyalty begins to waver. But that's just one half of the story, because while Red Bull tries to hold itself together, Horner is suddenly the most high-profile free agent in the sport, and there's one team perfectly positioned to take him in: Ferrari. The most iconic name in Formula One, the most passionate fan base, the most underperforming powerhouse of the past 2 decades. Despite showing signs of revival, Ferrari remains winless in 2025, and team principal Fred Vasseur is under enormous pressure. Behind closed doors, the Scuderia is restless. Italian media has begun pushing harder. Senior Ferrari figures are reportedly fed up with stagnation, and sources in Maranello have confirmed what many have suspected. They're seriously considering Christian Horner as a replacement. And here's the twist. It almost happened before. In late 2022, Ferrari made an offer. Horner seriously considered it, but Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko stepped in, personally convincing Horner to stay. According to Marko himself, it cost Red Bull millions in incentives to keep him. That deal? It's now dust. Ferrari needs transformation. Horner brings exactly that. He's called out Ferrari's inefficiencies before, criticizing their slow decision-making, their political infighting, and their fear of bold moves. He once described Ferrari as more of a national institution than a racing team. Harsh, but maybe accurate. If he were to join, you can bet he'd bring sweeping changes, strategic clarity, ruthless accountability, and most importantly, momentum, something Ferrari desperately lacks. And then there's the nuclear option, Verstappen following Horner to Ferrari. Is it realistic? Not immediately, but this is F1. Contracts are flexible, loyalty is fluid. And if Ferrari lands Horner and Verstappen continues to lose confidence in Red Bull, what once seemed impossible could suddenly be in play. All of this sets the stage for the Belgian Grand Prix, a race that suddenly carries far more weight than just points. It's the first look at the post-Horner Red Bull. It's Mickey's trial by fire. It's Verstappen's first public reaction on track, and it might even be the opening move in the next chapter of Horner's career. Christian Horner's exit from Red Bull is more than a personnel change. It's a fault line across the heart of modern Formula One. One team has lost its general. Another might just be ready to hand him the keys. The landscape is shifting, fast. What happens next could define who dominates the next era of Formula One and who gets left behind. Let us know what you think in the comments. Was Red Bull right to move on? Should Ferrari go all in on Horner? And is Verstappen staying put or already eyeing the exit? This isn't just the end of a chapter. It might be the beginning of a whole new story.